G'day. Today we're going to be looking at this Victa lawnmower. My neighbour's given up on it and he's just bought a new mower because it won't start. I've got a friend that wants a mower with a catcher, so I'm going to do it up for him. While I'm doing that, I'm going to show you a few little tricks with the Victa 2-strokes. A great mower. They're easy to maintain. They scare people sometimes because they're a little bit unpredictable, but if you know the right tricks, they go forever. So first thing we're going to do is just get the catcher, take him off. Now you just got to look for a few signs. Okay. First of all, I'm seeing the fuel's left on. That can be a problem with these Victas if you leave the fuel on when they're not going, because in the carby they have a plastic needle on a brass seat. They're very prone to leaking fuel, flooding the engine, and they just won't start. So whenever you finish using a Victa 2-stroke, always turn the fuel off. Okay, we're going to check a few more things out. So first of all, the case is loose, right? So that tells me someone's had a go at it before. We're going to take that off. So the fuel tank comes off with the top case like that. Just going to put it to one side. Now we can sort of see the whole engine, all the working bits. Now, because these Victas are a 2-stroke, one of the main problems people have is forgetting to put the oil in the fuel. And it's a very tricky problem to diagnose. The reason of that is because the engines have a decompressor. So if the bore and the piston get scored, it's very hard to tell if the engine has no compression, which is a sign of bore and piston damage, because when you turn them over slow they don't have compression anyway. So the quickest way to check is to knock the muffler off, have a look straight down the bore. That's just done with this top clip. All we do is put one screwdriver here. I'll just give you a close-up. All we do is just leave this clip against the heatsink on the engine, put one screwdriver under here. When the clip is loose, we just lever the clip up, like that, and then the exhaust just swings off. Okay, like that. Then what we can do is look into the bore and check it out. Slowly spin the engine round. Now see that? There's no scoring, and you can see the piston rings are loose in the piston. I'm just going to take the spark plug wire off and I'll spin it by hand. See that? There's no scoring on the piston, which means that our engine hasn't been seized. Okay, so sweet. So we just put the muffler back on now and we'll continue. Now putting it on is just the reverse of the removal. So we just need to put the muffler down the hole in the base, make sure it's hooked on the bottom clip. Like that. And we just put the top clip here like this. And we just lever it until it clips under the muffler. And she's back. Right, so that's the muffler done. Now, what we're going to do now is just take the bowl off the carby. Now this carby's been tilted around, okay? There's a line on them here. That's supposed to be horizontal, parallel to the ground. So someone's taken this off, that tells me. So we just need to take that off and check what's been done. Now this screw in the front here, which retains the carby bowl, is also the main jet. It's very important we don't lose any of these parts. Okay, that's the main jet. Now we take the carby off and just put your finger underneath to catch the float like that so it doesn't fall away, and you'll see the little needle valve in there. Right. So he's still there, so no one's lost that, which is always a fear when they have them apart. So I'm just going to put that straight back together. Just check that the O-ring around the bowl is still okay. Just while holding the float, push it in, and we're going to make this line horizontal to the ground. Check there's no rubbish on the screen and the jet, and screw it back in. So we're doing this very, very quickly because this is just diagnosing for any major problems, okay? All this stuff is very easy to get to later if there's a bigger problem. Okay, so I've decided the carby's going to work all right. Now, what we're going to do now is check the ignition. Now the easiest way to do that is just remove the plug. Two-stroke engines are very, very prone to fouling the plugs, which will give you no spark. Now also a problem, see how wet the plug is? If I shake it, fuel actually comes out of it. That tells me the engine's been flooded. Okay, so probably the easiest way to fix that is to take the plug completely out. And what we're going to do next is just turn the ignition off so we don't get any sparks down here. And we're just going to pull the motor around, and that'll help us pump all that extra fuel out. See all the mist coming out. Now that's not sucking in any more fuel mix because there's no fuel in the carby, right? We just emptied it. So all this is doing is pumping the vapour out of the cylinder. I'll just tip it on its side if you want. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with that. Now the next thing we need to do is check the ignition, check the spark. So what we do is we just put the plug back in the wire and we just earth the plug. We need to put the plug against the metal part of the engine to earth it, and we see if we get a spark across the points. So we obviously need to turn it down to where it runs. Now, turn the engine over and see if our spark is good. Okay, I'm not seeing any sparks across the points on the plug, right? So that means one of two things. Either the plug is fouled and it's shorting, or we have no ignition. So what we check, we take the plug out, I'm going to put a screwdriver in here, and we're just going to hold the screwdriver just an air gap from the metal part of the engine, and pull it again. We've got a spark there, right? So the ignition system of the engine is fine. Just going to show you that close up. So we've got our screwdriver fitted in the ignition boot here, which has just been taped up. That's not a big deal. They're prone to hitting fences and stuff. And you can see I've got the rubber touching the engine. We've got a little gap off a metal part of the engine here. This is the head. And we're going to wind the engine over and we'll see a spark there. And also hear it. Put it a little bit closer and we'll get a more constant one. See that? Rightio. So what I'm going to suggest was the problem with this engine was just a spark plug failed. So what I'm going to do is fit a new plug and we'll see what we got. This is actually a spark plug out of one of my other machines. And I know it's a good one. And I'm just going to wrap a bit of tape around the old spark plug boot. You can buy new ones of these, but hey, it's only a lawnmower. Pop him on, like so. Alright, so now I've got the case back on, got a new plug in there. What I'm going to do is just, got a new bit of fuel line here, put it on the carby. And just use a bit of vinyl tubing for that, cheap at the hardware store. You might not even need to fit one, I just fit this one because it was all hard while I had it apart. Okay, so what we're going to do, because the engine showed signs of being flooded, we're going to leave the fuel off. I'm not going to prime it. I'll just show you another little trick with the Victas. If your engine is flooded, you can just pull the snorkel off the airbox here, because they have an air restrictor up inside. What this does will lean out the mixture a lot, let a lot more air into the engine, and it'll help burn off that extra fuel mix. So we're going to push the throttle all the way down, and we're going to give it a pull and see what happens. Rightio, good as gold. So see how much smoke the engine's producing there? That's because of all the extra oil and fuel mix in the engine. So over time that'll burn out. The exhaust is going to be wet as well, so it's going to take a while to dry all that out. So now what we're going to want to do to start it, just turn the fuel on. Remember, always turn it off when you finish using it. And straight all the way down to full. It's still cold now, so we're just going to give it a couple of primes and give it a pull. Always turn that fuel off. So there we go. My mate's got a brand new Victa Mower now, basically for the cost of a new plug. So if your Victa stops and you can't start it, don't panic. Don't run to the hardware store and buy a brand new mower. Just do a few little simple checks as I've shown you here, and it's going to be all sweet again. So just a few tips to keep these running good. Always make sure you're mixing the proper amount of oil in your fuel. These engines run a 25:1 mix, so that's 40 mils of two-stroke oil for every litre of petrol. In other words, in 4 litres of petrol, you need 160 mils of oil. In 5 litres of petrol, you need 200 mils of two-stroke oil. Other than that, keep on trucking. Filth. See you guys.